Imagine the definitive battle tank, a machine with the pinpoint accuracy of a massively overpowered sniper rifle. One so heavily armored it could potentially withstand the chaos of a nuclear exchange. A vehicle so carefully engineered for its crew that it includes a small kitchen and a toilet. This is the British Challenger 2 main battle tank, a piece of hardware that has become a crucial asset for the Ukrainian armed forces in their struggle against the Russian invasion. Its impact, however, comes from a battlefield function its designers never originally envisioned. We're going to examine this mechanical behemoth and the creative tactics Ukraine has developed for its use. The Ukrainian military began operating the Challenger 2 in March 2023, becoming only the third force worldwide to do so, following the United Kingdom and Oman. This transfer involved 14 tanks from the British fleet. After Ukraine front to Ukrainian tank crews and commanders were trained on the system at Lulworth Camp in Dorset, England. While there was initial speculation about a subsequent delivery of another 14 vehicles, this does not appear to have materialized, at least not through official channels. The Challenger 2 was built by Vickers Defense Systems, a company now known as Rheinmetall BAE Systems Land. From 1993 to 2002, the manufacturer produced 408 units for the British Army and an additional 38 for Oman. By 2021, the British Ministry of Defense had put forward a plan to retire 79 of its 227 remaining Challenger 2s, with the other 148 slated for an upgrade to the new Challenger 3 standard. The origin of the tanks sent to Ukraine, whether from the group destined for retirement or the batch awaiting upgrade, is not publicly known. The evidence suggests, however, that Ukraine received the standard Challenger 2 configuration, not the Challenger 3 variant, which involves a significant modification, replacing the unique 120mm rifled gun with a more common NATO smoothbore version. The Challenger 2s in Ukrainian service still use their original rifled L-30A1 cannons, which their crews commend for their extraordinary accuracy. These tanks have also been outfitted with improvised battlefield improvements, such as slat armor mounted on top to provide a defense against drone-dropped munitions. On their own, 14 tanks are not a game-changing quantity, particularly in the context of the immense armored losses suffered over more than 3 years of brutal, grinding warfare. Estimates suggest Russia has lost more than 13,000 armored vehicles, a figure that includes over 4,000 tanks. Ukrainian losses, while estimated to be only about a third of Russia's, are proportionally just as severe, given that Ukraine began the conflict with a tank force up to 10 times smaller. In fact, 1 year into the fighting, Ukraine was thought to have already lost more than half of its primary main battle tank, the domestically produced T-64BV. At that time, analysts believed Ukraine required around 1,500 new tanks to effectively combat the Russian forces. The 14 Challenger 2s constituted less than 1% of this stated need, a drop in the bucket compared to Ukraine's overall requirement. Despite the small number, the UK's choice to provide these tanks may have altered the war's trajectory. Prior to this decision, Western countries had been hesitant to supply heavy equipment such as tanks and infantry fighting vehicles to Ukraine. This reluctance was largely driven by warnings from Russian President Vladimir Putin, who stated that delivering Western tanks would constitute crossing a red line and could provoke a dangerous escalation, potentially even leading to nuclear weapons use. In the end, this proved to be just another in a series of Putin's red lines that Ukraine's backers have crossed without triggering the threatened consequences. Following the UK's move, Ukraine received more than 300 modern Western battle tanks, the majority being US-2 made M1 Abrams and German Leopard 1 and Leopard 2 models. This was supplemented by roughly 60 PT 9120 tanks from Poland and over 400 Soviet-era T-72 tanks, primarily from Poland and the Czech Republic. These infusions of armor have significantly bolstered Ukraine's pre-war collection of Soviet-designed T-64, T-72, and T-80 tanks, as have the approximately 17 modern Russian T-90A and T-90M tanks that Ukrainian forces have captured in combat. The Challenger 2, much like every other main battle tank in Ukraine's arsenal, was conceived first and foremost as an offensive tool. Its formidable protective shell and destructive power, which we will explore in depth, are meant to spearhead infantry charges. Its doctrinal purpose was to eliminate enemy tanks, armored vehicles, artillery pieces, and fortified emplacements, thereby clearing a path for infantry to follow and advance under its cover. Yet, as with numerous other elements of this conflict, reality did not conform to the plan. In the war's early phases, both Russia and Ukraine employed tanks in this conventional manner. One side using them offensively to pave the way for infantry, and the other using them defensively, mainly to destroy attacking armor. Russia deployed thousands of tanks in its unsuccessful initial push to capture Kiev in February 2022, while Ukraine used its tanks more effectively during the successful counteroffensive in September 2022, which liberated vast swaths of occupied land in the Kharkiv region. This dynamic was completely upended within a year. The mass introduction of small, lethal first-person view, FPV drones by Ukraine caused catastrophic damage to Russian tank columns. Approximately two-thirds of Russia's staggering tank losses are credited to drone attacks. Consequently, Russia largely ceased employing tanks on the front lines and adopted alternative strategies. Ukraine, too, was compelled to abandon traditional tank tactics following its unsuccessful 2023 counter-offensive in the Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. In that effort, Ukraine committed its Challenger, Abrams, and Leopard tanks to a large-scale assault. However, they failed to break through even the first of three deeply layered defensive belts. These formidable lines, consisting of anti-tank ditches and concrete barriers known as Dragon's Teeth, combined with relentless artillery, aerial, and drone strikes, proved insurmountable for the West's most sophisticated battle tanks. Ukraine had to retreat, suffering heavy personnel casualties and equipment losses, which included the first verified destruction of a Challenger 2. A year later, the Challenger was back in the news during a Ukrainian incursion into Russia's Kursk region. Video evidence showed several Challenger tanks leading the attack, reportedly causing significant damage in the initial stages. Russian forces ultimately repelled the incursion. After 8 months, releasing footage that showed 3 more Challenger tanks being struck and impaired, if not completely destroyed. By mid-2025, Ukraine had constructed its own extensive networks of anti-tank ditches and Dragon's Teeth along the front to counter the slow, persistent Russian advances. With the skies now saturated with FPV drones, any vehicle or position on either side can be detected and engaged, often in a matter of minutes. This new reality means that nothing on the battlefield is secure, not even the most heavily armored tank. In the Ukrainian inventory, the economics of losing multi-million-dollar tanks to drones costing a few $1,000s became untenable for both armies. As a result, by mid-2025, it is unusual to see tanks leading charges for either side. This does not mean they have become obsolete. Instead, Ukraine's tanks, particularly its valued Abrams, Leopards, and Challengers, have been assigned a clever new purpose infantry support. Ironically, the Challenger 2 might be better suited to this new mission than the one for which it was originally built. A primary factor is the Challenger 2's exceptional defensive capabilities. Its hull and turret are shielded by second-generation Chobham armor, also referred to as Dorchester. A variation of this armor is used on the American M1s and Abrams. The precise formula is a tightly held secret, but it is understood to be a complex, multi-layered amalgamation of various metals, ceramics, and potentially other substances. Chobham armor is reputed to be at least twice as effective per unit of mass as traditional rolled homogeneous steel armor when facing high explosive anti-tank Shiite warheads. This resilience has already proven life-saving for Ukrainian soldiers. In one notable instance, the armor allowed a tank crew to live through a direct hit from a high explosive rocket fired by a Russian helicopter. The tank commander reported that the penetration was 720 millimeters deep, yet the crew survived unharmed. The vehicle remained operational and was able to finish its mission. After delivering the crew to safety, the damaged Challenger was repaired and quickly sent back to the front. The tank's safety systems extend far beyond its base armor. It includes a standard nuclear, biological, and chemical NBC filtration system housed in the rear of the turret. Its external profile is also shaped to reduce its radar cross-section, complicating Russian efforts to locate and lock onto it. Furthermore, 5L8 smoke grenade launchers are mounted on each side of the turret, and the Challenger 2 can generate a smoke screen by injecting diesel fuel directly into its exhaust. Ukrainian crews report a key tactical benefit. Their smoke dissipates in about 1 second, whereas the smoke from Russian T-72s and T-90s takes at least 5 seconds to clear. This gives the Challenger 2 a vital window of opportunity in a direct tank duel. Safety is also a central consideration in the ammunition storage design. The storage compartments are fitted with blow-out panels that channel any explosion outward and away from the crew compartment. Additionally, the propellant charges for the main gun are encased in individual fireproof containers to minimize the risk of a catastrophic fire. If the tank is hit, Ukrainian tankers have also expressed great appreciation for the vehicle's emphasis on crew comfort. The internal layout masterfully blends operational effectiveness with crew well-being, even incorporating touches of luxury by military standards. The Challenger 2 operates with a 4-person crew, a driver, a gunner, a loader, and a commander situated across 2 main levels. The driver sits in the center, front of the hull, operating the tank from a semi-reclined or fully supine position, using a controller that resembles a video game pad from the 1990s. The other 3 crew members are in the turret, with the commander on the right, the gunner positioned below and in front of the commander, and the loader on the left. While no tank interior is truly luxurious, the difference in space between a Challenger 2 and a Russian T-72 or Ukrainian T-64BV is akin to the difference between a first-class airline seat and one in economy. Pushing the comfort further, the Challenger 2 comes equipped with a kettle, a multi-cooker, and even a basic toilet, which uses a bag for waste disposal. This last feature is undoubtedly valued on the modern battlefield, where FPV drones constantly patrol, ready to attack any soldier exposed outside their vehicle. The British Army's long-standing focus on crew welfare is only part of the story behind these amenities. They were also integrated for long-term sustainability. The tank was engineered with the possibility of nuclear conflict in mind. The combination of the kettle, cooker, toilet, and NBC system was intended to allow a crew to remain sealed inside and survive for up to 3 days after a nuclear detonation. Regardless of the original intent, these comfort-oriented features are highly prized by the Ukrainian soldiers who now operate the tanks. The tank's targeting and fire control systems are equally impressive. The core is a digital fire control computer from the Canadian firm Computing Devices Co., which uses dual 32-bit processors and can be augmented with systems like a battlefield information control system. This advanced setup automatically adjusts for environmental variables like wind and humidity. For acquiring targets and maintaining situational awareness, the commander has a panoramic Saja EMVS 580 10 gyro stabilized sight with a built-in laser rangefinder, plus 8 periscopes offering a full 360-degree view. Both the commander and gunner have access to thermal imaging and night vision through the Thermal Observation and Gunnery Sight IATOSCE system by Thales. The thermal sensors are so sensitive that crews report they can detect rabbits moving through wooded areas. The gunner's primary stabilized sight also uses a laser rangefinder effective from 200 meters to 10 kilometers. The practical advantage of this technology is perfectly captured by a loader named Stanislav from the 8th Airborne Assault Bukovina Brigade. If 2 enemy tanks appear, one at 800 meters and another at 300 meters, the laser measures the range to both, and the computer stores the data for each. When the commander picks which one to hit, the gunner can switch between the stored targets with a single button press. This sophisticated targeting capability is a major part of the value the Challenger 2 brings to Ukraine. Its ability to hit small targets at very long distances. The other part is its main armament, the 120mm L30A1 tank gun. This is a robust weapon, fabricated from high-strength electroslag re-melted steel with a chromium lining and covered by a thermal sleeve. It includes a muzzle reference system and a fume extractor, and is fully integrated with the electric stabilization and control system. What sets this gun apart from every other main battle tank is that it is rifled. The spiral grooves cut into the barrel's interior impart a spin to the fired projectiles, enhancing their flight stability and thus their accuracy. This is particularly advantageous when firing high-explosive squash-head ASH rounds, in addition to the armor-piercing fin, stabilized discarding sabot APFSDS rounds used by smoothbore guns. ASH rounds have a longer effective range, about 5 miles farther than APFSDS, and are more potent against structures and lightly armored vehicles. The British military's traditional preference for ASH ammunition was a key reason for selecting a rifled gun for the Challenger 2 instead of a standardized NATO smoothbore. This choice, however, has proven to be a mixed blessing. The great advantage of the rifled L30A1 is that it delivers sniper-like precision at distances of up to 5 miles, but with the destructive force of a large-caliber tank shell. The tank can store up to 49 rounds for its main gun in the hull and turret, a mix of L27A1 APFDSS or CRM30 L31ACH and L34 white phosphorus smoke rounds, as the mission demands. The turret can complete a full 360 degree rotation in just 9 seconds, allowing the Challenger 2 to deliver precise fire across a wide arc in rapid succession. For secondary armament, the Challenger 2 carries two 7.62mm machine guns with 4 200 rounds of ammunition. This includes an L94A1EX34 chain gun mounted coaxially to the left of the main gun and an L37A2 machine gun on the loader's hatch. It can also be fitted with a Leonardo Enforcer remote weapon station, capable of carrying a heavier 12.7mm machine gun or a 40mm automatic grenade launcher. It is the unique rifled L30A1, however, that has enabled Ukraine to pioneer a new tactical approach, perfectly suited for a role that blends high precision artillery with infantry support. Rather than leading infantry assaults, Ukraine's Challenger 2s are now typically positioned several miles behind the front lines, concealed within Ukrainian-held tree lines. From these hidden positions, they engage fortified enemy bunkers and strongpoints located within Russian-controlled tree lines miles away. In this new strategy, the tanks operate in close coordination with the drones that now dominate the battlefield. Ukrainian surveillance and FPV drones identify targets and provide real-time adjustments for the tank's fire. Simultaneously, larger attack drones assault the same positions. Once these enemy fortifications have been neutralized or sufficiently degraded, infantry can move forward to capture them with reduced risk. The Challenger 2's accuracy is what makes it so effective in this capacity, acting as a form of mobile precision artillery. The tanks must remain under tree cover, because even a few miles is well within the operational range of Russian FPV drones. While the foliage provides concealment from direct visual detection, a tank that remains in one firing position for too long will inevitably be located and attacked. For all its advantages, the rifled main gun is also the platform's most significant weakness. The intense friction generated by the spinning shells causes the barrel to wear out after approximately 500 rounds. In contrast, the smoothbore 120mm gun on the Abrams tank can last for about 500 rounds before needing replacement. This means the Challenger's gun requires more frequent maintenance and repair, a serious problem given the critical and growing shortage of replacement parts. The L30A1 guns and their specific ammunition are no longer in production and haven't been for 20 years. The UK shut down its production lines for rifled 120mm ammunition years ago. Short of cannibalizing guns from decommissioned Challenger 2s in the UK, assuming any of those barrels are still in good condition, there are no replacements available if one of Ukraine's guns fails. The stockpile of ammunition is also finite and is being gradually depleted. Furthermore, as the Challenger 2 is phased out in favor of the Challenger 3, the pool of specialized mechanics qualified to service these older tanks is shrinking. The British government recognizes this logistical challenge and has taken steps to address it. In February 2025, the UK Ministry of Defence extended a support contract with Babcock International Group for an additional 15 months. This agreement focuses on keeping all UK-supplied vehicles, especially the Challenger 2 tanks, in fighting condition. The program encompasses repairing damaged tanks and, just as importantly, training Ukrainian personnel to perform their own battlefield maintenance. It also manages the complex supply chain to ensure a consistent flow of essential spare parts. This support is vital for units like the 82nd Airborne. The current operational status of Ukraine's Challenger fleet is unclear. But 1 year after their delivery, only half of the 14 tanks were mission-ready. Just one had been critically damaged by a Russian Lancet drone, and another was dedicated to training. The remaining 5 were out of action, simply because maintenance crews lacked the time or the necessary parts to fix them. The tank's utility is also constrained by the local environment. Weighing 62.5 tons when fully combat loaded, the Challenger 2 is about 7 tons heavier than an M1 Abrams. However, it is powered by a once 200 horsepower engine, significantly less powerful than the Abrams Fern 500 horsepower engine. This power-to-weight ratio, combined with Ukraine's soft, often waterlogged soil, which turns into deep mud during the spring and autumn Rasputitsa seasons, has shown the Challenger to be somewhat underpowered and susceptible to becoming bogged down. Even with these limitations, the Ukrainian crews who operate them would fiercely resist any attempt to take their Challengers away. As a tank commander with the call sign, Hera explained, it's really like a sniper rifle. It allows you to strike enemy targets at long distances. You don't need to get too close. You can fire calmly from cover and then pull back. And after a successful engagement, the crew can celebrate their work by brewing a hot drink, all without ever having to leave the safety of their armored vehicle.